Right now, you're listening to the Azeem Digital Asks podcast, the podcast where I, Azeem, talk to some of the top marketers in the industry, find out everything about them, how they got to where they are today, and more importantly, sharing some really useful marketing tips that will help everybody listening to this become better marketers. Stay tuned for another great episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Azeem Digital Asks podcast. Really excited for my guest today, and I really want to find out if he definitely did wake up at 7 o'clock this morning. He's the Data and Insights Manager at Rise at 7, Thierry Ngutegure. Thierry, welcome to the show.
I love it, man. Do you know what? The way you pronounce my surname, that is top tier. That is one of the best I've heard.
Yes, love that, love that. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, I'm good. We're happy, we're healthy, we're moving. That's all that kind of counts at the moment, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Couldn't put it any better than that. And by all means, feel free to share what you are drinking right now.
Yeah, so in classic lockdown fashion, I've got myself a little beer straight after work, so I'm having a nice little San Miguel, nice and cold, sat back, relaxing. I can't say I'm in any sort of office attire or dress really well, if I'm honest with you, so thank the Lord that this is an audio first bit of content.
Top stuff. Right, I am going to grill you all about data because you are the man for me when it comes to that, and I'm very glad that you're my guest today. But I have two quick icebreakers for you. So the first one is, I want an answer straight away. Okay, what time did you wake up this morning?
6 a.m.
Oh, okay, I'll let you off. And then the second one is, if you were a wrestler, what would your entrance theme song be?
Oh my God. It has to be DMX, X Gon' Give It To You. Honestly, that song, there is nothing you cannot achieve in life to that song. It is the biggest hype. Even your enemies will clap you in. Like, it's one of those ones. It's an absolute vibe.
I've got visions of you sitting at your desk now, just listening to that song.
Yeah. So, fun fact, yeah. So what's an interesting thing is a lot of my colleagues as well have always been like, this guy's super weird. Is when I've got like loads of Excel spreadsheets open, which I usually do, and I'm kind of like really deep into an analysis, I work to the pace of music that I listen to. So therefore, I listen to like hardcore rap, like, your old school Eminems, your DMXs and things like that, because I work to that pace. How bizarre.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Different. I do like the same sort of music, but never in spreadsheets. No chance.
Oh, I love it.
Absolutely no
Honestly,
chance.
I'm obsessed. It's so funny because at the time, on the external, I look quite, I'm like stood still and there's nothing. I barely flinch. And then inside my head, it's a full blown rave, and I love it.
Right, last one before we learn a little bit more about you. Again, I've not prepared you for this one, so your answer will dictate how the rest of this interview goes. And there is a correct answer.
Ooh,
Pick one, Jay-Z or Nas.
Jay-Z. Oh,
Correct answer. Correct answer. Well
oh,
done.
that
Well
was
done.
honestly, I'm sweating. That was. You may as well just end the podcast there. To be honest with you, that is.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
It's been a pleasure. Take a drink and go home.
Right, we're digressing. Listen, for anybody who basically lives under a rock and doesn't know who you are, do you want to just give a little introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sweet. So, as mentioned, my name is Thierry Ngutegure. I am the Data and Insights Manager over the greatest agency on earth, Rise at 7. And as I say, if you've been under a rock, as I say, we are a search-first creative agency. But in terms of like who I am, I look after our kind of audience insight, research, data analysis over at Rise at 7. So making sure that everything that we do, when people say that they're data-led, I make sure that we're actually data led, and it's something that we're super proud of, and we kind of say with our chest. But yeah, that is in terms of like what I do at work. In terms of who I actually am as a person, I'm a northern lad. I love to dance. Fun fact, I used to compete nationally in dance competitions, which is quite a fun one for you there. Exclusive. But aside from that, I'm just a super motivated, young, hungry black man. Yeah.
Love that. 10 out of 10. I was going to say, you're definitely very, very high up on the list of people that I want to meet after lockdown, but I'm definitely going to make sure there's no dancing involved from my part. No chance.
No, honestly, don't worry. By the time we're out, I feel like my hips have seized up anyway. Uh, I think we'll all be safe from my moves. Let's just say that.
So before I sort of pick your brains about everything sort of data related, I wanted to ask you. So look, you've had such an interesting journey into your career now, which I think not every listener may not know about. So
Mm.
I've got two questions, but I'll just kind of wrap them into one. So the first one is, in terms of your career now in data, what motivated you to start a career in data? I'd love to hear more, and I think the listeners would love to hear more about your journey to where you are now. And secondly, if you could start all over again, go right back to the beginning of your career, but armed with all the knowledge that you've got, what advice do you think that you'd give to yourself?
Ooh, this is juicy. So, um, in terms of what like motivated me to get into this career, God's honest truth, I think with a lot of, especially from like search perspectives, a lot of people kind of stumble into data, right? And I guess the interesting question from that is almost what kept you there. But my background and university and all that kind of stuff, I went to uni and I did biological sciences, focusing on immunology and genetics. So I was completely the other side of the spectrum from where I am in kind of a digital space. And then I quickly kind of learned that I'm very much an extrovert. I'm somebody who, wants to be around people and to also understand people, not just from a biological perspective, but from a psychological perspective, right? So I then picked up a master's. I then went on to do a master's in marketing over at Huddersfield Uni. And from there, that kind of solidified it for me. It said, I think the analytical mindset I picked up from biological sciences mixed with some of that, social psychology and consumer kind of economics type stuff. I was like, you know what, data is a thing I'd love to pursue. And I guess what kept me here is that I think traditionally there's a lot of preconceptions when it comes to data. Every time I turn
Yeah.
to a call or I go to a meeting and things like that, and they're just kind of like, oh, you're the data guy, the guy that we can't shut up. Where the preconceived notion is that I sit in the corner with my black hoodie on and I just tap away on some keys and loads of Excel spreadsheets. But I really enjoyed bringing some life, energy, creativity to the world of data. Um, I'm not saying I am the smartest, kind of data person out there, whatever realm of data that you work in, but I know for a fact no one will ever kind of outsell me or out kind of maneuver me from a passion perspective and a motivation. I just love being around people. I love finding answers. I'm a logic-based person. If there's something that I need to kind of figure out, I will kind of go ahead and delve into that rabbit hole. And I guess that's what's kept me here, especially the freedom it gives from a data perspective. We live in an era where everything's data first, data first, data first. So, we have a
Mm.
novel opportunity right now to kind of shape what our industry is going to look like, and the work that our kind of agencies and companies that we work out kind of produces. So yeah, it's really exciting in my opinion. Yeah.
Love that. Question one, content gold already.
Mm.
Can end the interview right now. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Just saying that second part of that question. Then, if I was to go back and what would I tell little old Thierry, and I think what I would say is work experience. Now, I think that when I was at university or even outside of university, and you're kind of trying to find your feet, I think we tried to, I think we expected university to tell us a lot more about our future career paths than it was ever going to. And we expected it to almost, you land at 21 and your university degree gives you a job, right? But
Mm.
we were how many millions of people kind of who fell off that kind of conveyor belt, who came out of university. And so we're interestingly, we went to university to differentiate ourselves, but we came out as, a group of individuals who are very well educated for sure, but we're all kind of on the same level, right? So then the thing that distinguished people was work experience, and that's something I didn't get, and it wasn't something that was drummed into me. So a piece of advice for anybody listening, kind of starting out their career, literally just DM whoever you love, and you'd be surprised at how welcoming, open armed people are to talking to you and things like that. Like, even from a perspective of my career right now, when there's a bit of data I can't get or I know someone else has, I won't just sit on my hands and go, oh, well, they have it. And no, I will literally DM the CEO of any company and ask them for their data. And they are super receptive. If they're telling you to go away, that's fine. And no is better than a failed project. So yeah, work experience and just, DM people. They're not that bad. And then learn everything. I think that at university or even between there and now, there's just so many free resources. Like you can literally become anyone on earth just based on YouTube. You could learn rocket science on YouTube. There's nothing that isn't on there. And I think I just
Mm,
take advantage of it at the time, like that type of free content. Like even some of the stuff that you push out, Azeem, do you know what I mean? Like it's all out there and free content. Like it's nuts. I went
mm.
to university, we paid thousands, and God's honest truth, I could learn more in a year of YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. I think you make a very interesting point there, which made me think of a question that I've definitely not prepared you for. But right now, given the state of everything, let's say, if you met somebody who was sort of young and hungry, wanted to get into this career, what would you say to them about university? Would you advise they go, or would you advise they just get straight into it?
Um, I'd advise it probably. Do you know what? It'd probably be a hybrid of the two because at heart, I've come from a very academic background from my family and things like that. And I do totally believe that,
Mm,
if you go to university and you pick the right course, you can come out with some absolute gold. It's just that depending on your industry, you need to understand whether a degree is necessary or nice to have, right? So there are some fields where I'd say, you know what, if you're going to go kind of whether it's like machine learning or computer science, where something where it's like, it's going to take quite a bit of rigorous a couple of years, and it needs to be something where somebody holds you accountable and drives you through, and you might need to pick up some theory or whatever that may be. Something um, that is, as you say, yeah, someone to keep you honest and to drive you through. I'd say, yeah, go to university for that aspect. But knowing what I know now, would I have gone to university just for the academic portion? Probably not. I would.
yeah,
I think I would have been able to pick up those skills outside of my course, and if anything, I think I came back with a wealth of just experience as a human being. I think I developed at university. I developed my love for individuals and love for people, and understanding what makes us tick. And that is what I got from university more so than my degree. And you can argue your analytical sense. You could have, you picked up from your degree, but God's honest truth, I just know for a fact I'm a motivated enough individual to have picked that up outside of that.
yeah. Brilliant answer. Thanks very much for
Mhm.
that. Leads me very nicely to my next question. So, when you see that people want to work in this field of data analysis, for example, what's the biggest mistake that you've seen people make?
So is it kind of like, are you thinking entering that field? Like the big
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
I think it's that point I touched on previously. Entering that field is not asking for help. I feel like for some reason we live in a society where this whole self struggle and hustle porn type lifestyle means that we don't ask for help, and there's a really high barrier to entry. Because the reason I say that is when I was entering this kind of analytical side data style thing, like it's a massive umbrella. It is a minefield. Like even saying data is actually a bit rude of me because there is just so many facets and avenues and different
Mm,
disciplines towards data. And if you're going in there and you've not really asked for help in a sense of like DMing somebody who is in a role that is very similar to what something that you'd like to go into, to ask them, what is your day to day, for example. I think that is one of the biggest mistakes people make, as an entry, because what then happens is you enter and you think, oh, all data is like this, so therefore I'm not sticking around. It's not a thing for me. Whereas, you know, trying to understand what people do on a day-to-day basis from the horse's mouth can tell you 10 times more than sitting in a role for 2 years that you really hate, quite simply. And don't get me wrong, I was very fortunate in how I entered it. I joined Epiphany. So for anybody who knows Epiphany, it was an absolutely incredible agency. And the people there were awesome. And so the well, in fact, I entered it as a data journalist, which is an interesting title. But my role there was to exactly that, tell stories with numbers. And so, yeah, I had quite a fortunate entry into it. But I'd always say the biggest mistake is just not asking. Just ask.
yeah, that's brilliant. I'm definitely going to pick your brains around the topic of stories later on. But I wanted to ask you about failure then. So, I'll give you an option. Can you tell me about the biggest failure that you've made, or option B is the biggest failure that you've seen or experienced?
Oh God, this is tough. Like, do I drop myself in it or do I drop someone else in it?
You could do both.
No, do you know, biggest failure I've seen. I think I'm going to go generic with this in the sense of, my biggest failure in, I think maybe even one of my greatest flaws up until a couple of months ago, realistically, which is a failure I think I've carried over the last couple of years is I was a yes man. And what I mean by being a yes man is for those that work in agencies or even, small teams or whatever that may be, um, people come to, like, especially from a data perspective, a lot of it is quite, somebody needs something from you as opposed to you have this output and you are trying to find people to give it to. So people kind of come to you needing an analysis or needing data or whatever that may be. And so then you develop this kind of complex where you are constantly, saying yes and saying, oh yeah, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. And then you develop a thing where, I was up until like 11 p.m working a couple of years ago, like on a daily basis. And that's just because I couldn't say no. And I didn't really understand the power of saying no. Now, by being a yes man, in my head, I was pleasing those people who were giving me that work. But actually, what I was doing is delaying projects because I say yes to so much, I wouldn't sleep, I won't finish this project, it would slip, and things would, fall behind. And so then campaigns would be weeks overdue, or a reactive campaign won't go live because I've been sat on the data for so long because I've got so much to do. And that yes man mentality, interestingly, I started out trying to make it, to get people to like me. And instead, actually, people would hate me because people won't want to give projects to me. And so then they would do it themselves. And so when you've given data to somebody who isn't, data isn't their thing and they're not very proficient in it, then there's a failure within it. And so when it comes back, then it's still on you because, that's the thing that you looked after. And up until I kind of joined Rise, that was very much one of my greatest failures. I was so much of a yes man. And it's when I say no and the power of saying no, I don't mean, every time somebody comes to you, you say no. It's just knowing how much your plate can carry. It's knowing that this is the circumference of my plate and anything that's kind of spills over, I just can't do it. And people are super receptive to people saying no and I can't do more because they're kind of like, oh, I totally understand, amazing, so when can you fit it in? And they will flex to your requirements. So yeah, that's probably a generic failure for me up until I kind of sat down and I was like, whoa, if I continue at this pace, I just won't be able to sustain this type of lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant answer, and at the very least, it makes you more human, I think. If you're
Mm.
just constantly saying yes to everything, you can
Yeah.
appear like you said, basically superhuman, will do anything, and then in the event something unexpected happens and you need to just drop something or something goes wrong, it can be magnified up to 10 times. Love that. That's a
Yeah,
brilliant answer.
yeah, definitely. I was thinking, have I got a failure for other people? Do you know what I do actually?
Go on, go on then.
So failing, almost like a data failing, just so that we keep it from them, rather than how tragic my life is. We could keep it on the data. So yeah, a failing that I see actually is the assumption of numerical literacy, right? So what I mean by that is because we live in a world now of data at our fingertips and data is king and data, people assume that more equals more insight, right? So they just pile loads of data in and they make things super complex and they assume numerical literacy in the sense of if I told if you told somebody there's a 28% chance of it raining on Saturday, there's a couple of ways you could presume that. Is it a 28% of that area in Saturday, or 28% of the rain, or 28% of the time? Or, there's a lot of things because we're numerically literate, we assume that other people are. And
Mm.
so when people produce these reports where, whether it's like an audit or whatever it may be, and you send over reams of reports to people, I'm like, do you genuinely think everything that you've just sent over there makes sense and is actionable? And just because there's lots of data, it does not mean that's the insight you needed to draw from it. And it's a mistake I made quite early on as well. I'd produced like 67 slide analysis of data, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm super proud of it. And the client will come back and go, yeah, can we just have slide 23? That's it. And I'm like, that's it. I've done 67 slides.
Yeah.
And that was my issue. I was assuming a lot of that everything had insight and it was actionable and it's what the client cared about, but it wasn't at all. And so the more, more is not better in any way, shape, or form. And don't assume people know what you mean just because you've been sat in the data for 2 weeks, and haven't took your head out of it. It doesn't mean that the person that you're going to be delivering it to has that much of an understanding of it as well. So be kind of clear and concise and fit it on a post-it note. Otherwise, it ain't worth it.
Yeah, completely agree. That's really valuable insight. Thank you very much for sharing it. I was definitely in the same boat when I first started. I used to think a mega long email report or a super
Mm,
long Word document, I'd really achieve something. And then you learn by doing basically, and everything you've just said, 10 out of 10.
mm,
Feel free to literally hit rewind and press play on that again because that is gold. You've led me very nicely to ask you my next question then. So, and I'm quite keen to hear what you have to say about this. And hopefully, you've been in this situation. What do you think about people who say, "I've got a theory. Can you bend this data to prove the theory that I've got, or can you sort of twist it to prove the theory?" Rather than asking you for your expertise about what the data says. If somebody
yeah.
comes to you with a theory and asks you to prove it with the data, what do you say to that?
Yeah. So I guess it's an interesting one as well because I know for a fact this has happened to possibly everybody that's listening, to some extent of shape. So whether you are putting together data for a campaign or an audit, a bit of analysis, or even proving your own strategy as well. I think that I God's honest truth, I act deaf to it, right? So in the sense of I just don't hear it because my greatest fear with a lot of these things as well is, as well as obviously I have to put my name to this type of work, right? Is somebody comes back and says, "Oh, by the way, I've just been looking at those numbers and X, Y, and Z," and I'm usually that guy. I am that guy who will go through those T's and C's and understand this is based on an audience sample of X, Y, and Z, or it's been
Mm,
analyzed between these 2 days, ta, and I will find it. Now, imagine then that having your name against it and you having to justify that kind of thing, and the credibility, well, it removes all credibility and the kind of trust between you, the client, your teammates, and things like that. I just don't hear it. I don't mind doing a piece of analysis and my data doesn't fit or doesn't have the insight of the hypothesis I found. That's fine. Go back to the drawing board or re-angle or do whatever it may be. 9 times out of 10, the irony is, it actually comes out with a better story than sometimes that you actually first went into it with. So yeah, I've heard it 1,000 times, but it will never have my name beside it, in terms of like bending it to your will. And also, you know, I've seen tweets and all kinds of stuff as well about the kind of data and analysis can be bent to to be in favor of the individual's kind of own bias as well. And I'm very aware that that is a thing. And if my analysis seems to have that kind of bias, which can naturally happen without you actually even realizing half the time, which is why a lot of our work is peer reviewed and is signed off by like this peer sign off process to make sure that your methodology is correct and it kind of goes through the right channels and stuff. Um, then yeah, you're pretty much buggered. But I just don't really see. I feel like it's more effort to bend the data than just to do it. I don't know who's got the time to be bending all this stuff. This is absolutely man. Just crack on. I don't really,
yeah,
well, I do get it. Sometimes the client spent a couple of grand on a piece of research and it doesn't come out with what they want to hear. But you know what it is, that's just life. They're gonna have to hear it. But it's a learning curve nevertheless. But yeah, I do get it, but it's not on my watch.
yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And I think you've touched on it brilliantly there about bias. If you're starting anything like this with some sort of bias towards a particular hypothesis, then you're starting off on the wrong foot, definitely, and you're not going to be objective. Leads me very nicely then. I've got a couple more for you. So, in terms of the work that you're doing or the work that you've done in the past, is there one that always sticks out as something that you would say, you know what, that's my favorite piece of work that I've ever done?
Do you know what's interesting? I'm going to say no. In terms of there isn't. So of all the bits that I've done, right? It's almost like, especially at Rise, it's almost like we outdo ourselves every couple of months, right? So there's some absolutely creative like inspirational pieces that are coming out, and you're just thinking, what? And this thing is like banged out by a creative team in like an hour, and I'm thinking, do you know what? I tip my hat. And some of the analysis type bits, whether it's from a PR perspective or even some forecasting bits, I've been looking, because I was looking at like trying to forecast brand health, for example. It's some really kind of innovative stuff that didn't end up panning out. I think one of the things that I really am super excited and very proud of is some of the stuff that we're building from an audience insight perspective, right? So we've gone back to the drawing board, because I think we've got, as I say, we are in a position where going forward, data privacy from a customer perspective it's going to be few and far between. The lockdown has already commenced on a lot of audience type data, right? And so then comes, how do we leverage that data that we can get hold of, whether it be primary or secondary data, right? So how do we leverage that to understand things like buyer personas, and also use those buyer personas to actually produce actionable insight that we can physically use? And we've put together a bit of a methodology I've been working on with Lydia, Stacey, and Luke over at Rise, and honestly, it's incredible, absolutely amazing. Some of the work that we've done there, where we're kind of validating personas based on search, based on audience research, and kind of analytics, essentially. Honestly, mind blowing. That is the thing that I'm going to be proud of, and when that kind of comes out, I'll share it with you guys, because we're very open with this kind of stuff. More than I'll share that results, so I'll share it with you. But it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
I was hoping for an exclusive there, so now, because I don't have one,
what kind of exclusive you want, Azeem, man? Putting pressure on me.
Right.
What can I get you?
Officially, you think I have one question left for you, when actually I've got two, and neither of which I've prepared you for, which I'm really looking forward to this. So, recently, you put out a competition where you said, tell me what your parents, friends, family think you do for a living. Let me ask you, what do your parents, friends, or family think that you do for a living?
I mean, trying to explain to them is an interesting one. My parents, to begin with, thought I was like an IT manager. So anything that broke that was electronic in the house was like, don't worry, Tia will come round and fix it. Don't worry about it, Tia will come round and fix it. Then my mum then thought I built websites and sold them to Google. I was like, oh my God, I mean, look, Mum, if you want to get into this business and you want to back it, I'm down for that. I think we could build we could build some really cool sites together. But yeah, so like that competition really, the reason I kind of did it that way was I just wanted to highlight the complexities and how far reaching a lot of our work is, right? So a lot of us work in the digital sphere, our work touches on a lot of people and a lot of teams and a lot of things. And so the recent conversations I've seen on Twitter is, this channel's better than this channel's better than this channel, I'm better than you, this department's better than, no. And so that competition was just to show, just even asking our own family members and friends about what we do, and the wide ranging answers that kind of came out just goes to show how much impact our jobs have on a far wider community than we can even perceive. And all of them matter at one given, all of them are successful at any given time. When we say this is more important than this, it's like, come on, get off your high horse. We're all kind of going in the same direction. And it was just a really nice thing for people to get engaged with. And so, we got some really cool answers. Apart from Ryan, whose parents thought he was a drug dealer, I was like, look, I'm not getting into that industry. He can keep that one. He can keep that one to himself. Yeah, it was a cool competition, man.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gutted that I missed out on that, but we can talk privately about a free swag. We could do
Listen,
a free swag trade.
Listen, I got you. For all the listeners, you didn't hear a single thing.
And then last unprepared one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that around Christmas, so the time of your Christmas party, that you won the award for being the person that encompasses everything about Rise.
Yeah.
So, how does Thierry encompass everything about Rise at 7?
Oh God. Okay, here we go. Right. So I think that I am super personable in that I don't overcomplicate things. I speak, in plain terms. I'm not somebody who's like speaks in jargon just for the sake of it. I'm really welcoming, and what I mean by that is I just love people. I love being around people. I think the best thing on this planet is just each other. I really wholeheartedly do. And even the way I talk to people on Twitter or LinkedIn or things like that, like I just love people. Passionate as well. So if I want to get involved in something, I'll go in kind of 2 feet first. There's no messing about. I don't really kind of hold myself back. I'm very much jump all in. Open and honest. As I said that earlier, there's not many things that you can ask me, and I wouldn't tell you, because what have I got to hide? And if there is even 2 people on this planet that kind of share that same experience, then I've done my job for the day. And then welcoming, and then there is the best one, a sprinkle of arrogance and confidence. I think mixed in together really is lovely, in the sense of I truly believe in myself, and I don't mind falling over and making mistakes. And if someone tells me that I'm wrong, that's fine. I still believe in myself. It doesn't really knock what I think of myself, and I just continually pump that kind of self-belief. And I never say anything to myself that I wouldn't say to my friends. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I treat myself with a lot of respect when it comes to that from a mental health perspective. So yeah, I think that's what encompasses Rise. Ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. I couldn't agree with you more, mate. Genuinely, I could talk to you for hours, but I need to make sure that you get enough sleep if you're waking up at 6 o'clock. So the last one from the last one from me is, this has been really interesting. Thanks very much for sharing your time. If there are a few things that you wanted people to take away from this episode, let's just say a couple of takeaways, what would you want people to really take away from listening to this with you?
I really want to kind of drum in, and I think I'll be doing it for the rest of this year, is that data can be creative. You're not pigeonholed into this thing of, you're a person who does an analysis, or you do this, or you're stuck in an audit, or you're doing this hypothesis or whatever. You can be super creative with data. So whether that be data visualizations, telling stories with data, even tracking your own behaviors and doing all that kind of stuff. Like, data is one of the most, it can paint an incredible image that no one else has seen and no one else had ever thought of. So don't ever think that you're just punching in numbers or whatever that may be. Add a little level of creativity with the numbers, and you'll be shocked. And if you want a little bit more into what that actually means and what that physically looks like, then just DM me, grab me on Twitter at Thierry Allen, and we'll have a quick cheeky little conversation about it. And it's something that I'm really, really, really passionate about. And I think, this year more than most, data is it's the way to go forward when telling any narrative, in my opinion.
That is brilliant. Thierry, thank you for being a fantastic guest. I know you mentioned it there, but if somebody wanted to find out more about you, get in touch or connect with you via the socials, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, just grab me on Twitter, Thierry Allen. It's probably the easiest one to spell as well. But if you are feeling brave, grab me on Instagram and on LinkedIn at Thierry Ngutegure. I also have a podcast as well. Oh, shameless plug. And it just talks about, the Black experience. I talk about, growing up as a young Black man and the kind of things that we kind of go through. And it's really quite cool. It's quite funny. We've got a new one coming out soon around mental health and stuff. So yeah, get involved, man. And like, share and subscribe this one, because it is awesome. And he is doing amazing things.
What a hero. Thank you very much. I'll be sure to add a link into the episode notes for your socials and also that podcast. And it's only fair for me to say, listen, you have to check out Thierry's podcast. It is absolutely brilliant. I strongly recommend not having any sort of liquid or drink nearby, because it's very likely you're going to knock it over from laughing so much.
Good. That's why we have belly laughs. I love.
Thierry, thanks for being a brilliant guest. As always, I let my guests have the last word on the show. So open forum within reason. You've got 30 seconds to say whatever you want, and this is the end of the episode. So thank you very much.
Oh, incredible. You can be whoever you want to be. Don't let anybody stop you. And if in doubt, think, what would Thierry do?
So that was another great episode in the bag. I'm really enjoying hearing from some brilliant people in this industry. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow me on Spotify. Please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you are using. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and hopefully see you for the next episode.